Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the Big Power 75 presented by Richard Childress Racing and Maconi Setup Shop, live tonight from iRacing's virtual Twin Ring Motegi in Motegi, Japan. I am James Pint, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Justin Prince, our producer for the evening, Ryan Bauer, as always, with cameras provided to us by the great Dougie Beer. This is a very fun night and an entertaining night that I think we're going to have. First time we've had the chance to do an event with Richard Childress Racing, which I won't complain about in the slightest. You know, RC and I share the same hometown, and I happen to know the Dillon brothers very well. Got the chance to go to school with them back in the day, so there are plenty of personal connections between the two. But we've also got a really cool track that we're using. As Jeff Maconi and his wizardry, that team at Maconi Setup Shop, looked around, they went with Twin Ring Motegi. Fitting maybe in a sense because we are deep in the heart of the Tokyo Olympics, but this is also a very unique track, Justin Prince. Shaped like Darlington, but banked almost like Martinsville. There's not really anything like it that can compare in the United States, because even you look at somewhere like Worldwide Technology Raceway, which is probably about the closest analog I could think of, and this place is way, way wider than Gateway, so it races way different.
It absolutely does, and it's going to bring plenty of challenges for our competitors tonight to be able to learn the circuit and be able to properly make their way around. Keep in mind, NASCAR did come here in 1998 with their drivers and put on a great show with a lot of great battling throughout that entire field. I think we're going to see some great battling here today, James.
That 1998 race, one of the first broadcasts I really remember watching, and the first oval race NASCAR ran outside of, I believe, North America, maybe the United States outright, but I know North America for certain. It's a fun broadcast that we'll definitely talk about at many points throughout the day. It's a good reference point for what we're going to see, at least on some level this evening, as we take a look at where we are in the world. We'll go right on to RCR's campus in Welcome, North Carolina, about a half hour south of Winston-Salem, and you head all the way across the world and about an hour and a half north of Tokyo proper into the Twin Ring Motegi complex that was built in 1997 and opened up that same year. 10 degrees of banking in the corners, no banking on the front straightaway, and about 10 on the back as well. Not really much of a transition coming off of it, turn 2. Just over 1.5 miles in length, 2.4 kilometers, and we're going to have a lot of fun racing on this oval at Twin Ring Motegi. A lot of big names that are going to show up as we take a look at the race analysis and tell you all what to expect from this evening. Drivers are currently completing 2 laps of qualifying. I believe we are going to be either right on the nose or close to having 40 cars that are just qualifying in. We're not really above 40, which means we, I believe, may have the opportunity to skip the last chance race, which is there if we need it. We'll see whether or not we have a few more people that show up over the course of the next minute or so. But the main race that you're going to see tonight, 75 laps, just under 120 miles, just over 185 kilometers. Drivers will have 1 faster pair, and we'll be using a custom fixed setup courtesy of the folks at Maconi Setup Shop. 2 sets of tires are available to our drivers in the pits, and we have 3 green-white checkers if we need them. This race will probably go quickly, Justin Prince, but that's not to say we're not going to be entertained. You're going to see a lot of action here at Twin Ring Motegi over the course of the night.
It's going to be very entertaining, James, to see the battling around here, as well as to see how drivers adapt to the track, because it's not a circuit you normally see today's NASCAR Cup cars go to, obviously. And for many of the drivers I spoke to entering tonight's action, it was about the learning process of trying to figure out the lines and trying to get themselves to where they match the speed they need to get to, especially to be able to run around the bottom of the racetrack. So that balance is going to be so critical, to be able to run up at the front, as well as to be able to run with how wide this track is.
Very wide racetrack indeed. You can run multiple lines here as we turn to the starting grid and tell you where your favorite driver will begin this evening. Andrew Navarro with a fast time at 35.896 seconds. Joined on the front row by Tommy Gossett. William Hale is in there. Jordan Spoon, who helped organize the sprint, part of the team that got this together. Garrett Maines, Cup Series driver, and Briar LaPraz, who won the NASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series top split last week, also in the first 3 rows.
Yep, Gregory Hectus in 7th position, Presley Sora in 8th, streamer Travis Martin in 9th, with Derek Rice in 10th position. Tower Power starts in 11th with Nick Kessler rounding out the top 12.
Michael Peters, Mitch Robinson there starting 14th and 15th. David Cabrera, Clayton Davis in the mix too. Daniel Hendrick and Jason Overton starting 18th for the lead.
Right behind them, Jeffrey Maconi in row 10 alongside Cameron Iverson. Charlie Brown, NASCAR spotter, in row 11 alongside Rob Peterson. Dontre Graves in row 12. He's alongside Greg Maconi.
Brett Punkari and Craig Lewis occupy that 13th row. Starting in 27th, John Tim struggled Bogle 28th. Taylor Burris and Jay Wapp, Justin Wapham completing the top 30.
Right behind them, Josh Stoltz with S.E. Martin in 32nd position overall in row 16. Brandon Bullock alongside Drew Allren in row 17. Decon will start in row 18 with Julian Ritchie in 36.
John Coe, Coy Hassler, Lee Everton, Jason Coe, your final 4 drivers. In sim, it is just around 3 o'clock local time for the default day for iRacing, May 15th, 2021. 68 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 98 degrees Fahrenheit track temp. Winds headed to the north at 4 miles an hour and humidity of 50%. So decently warm track here in north central Japan as we get set to bring you the Big Power 75. These drivers all racing not only for pride, but for a prize pack, courtesy of the folks at Richard Childress Racing. A Big Power t-shirt, a Tyler Reddick race use Quartz Hill panel, and so much fun to be had over the course of the evening. Barney the flagman lets the green flag unfurl, and we are racing in Japan for the Big Power 75 from Richard Childress Racing and Maconi Setup Shop. wide to complete the first lap as Garrett Means shoots the gap between Tommy Gossett and Andrew Navarro to go out front, and Gossett will try and claim and will claim second in front of William Hale as Navarro slides up top. There's Presley Sora, Brian LaPrade right behind him, but already you can see how this race is going to pan out and how nuts it's going to be, especially at the front, Justin.
Yeah, already some big moves with how wide the circuit is, and some bold moves, I will say. But many of the drivers looking like they found some confidence already in the corners in particular. Keep in mind, back in 1998, many of the drivers were able to stick that white line in the corners, but so many drivers have also mentioned to me that if you can find the speed, especially in turns 1 and 2 in particular, there's so much to be had at that part of the racetrack, and right now we're seeing that with some of these drivers making these moves.
There goes William Hale to the inside of Tommy Gossett as Hale charges down the back straightaway. Brian LaPrade will tuck in and tail behind him, and they will both clear Gossett, who certainly came well dressed for the occasion. A very clear throwback to Kevin Harvick's 2007 Daytona 500 winning paint scheme aboard his number 10 machine.
Very impressive paint scheme indeed for Tommy Gossett. He felt a little bit nervous about this race entering tonight, but he's looking very strong to start. Got himself good track position, but just seems to be struggling a bit on corner exit. But William Hale seems to be really wanting to find a way along with Brad with how he's building up these runs.
It is a little bit more momentum-based than usual and than what we've seen in the past, just because you are running with the 550 horsepower NA18D package at Twin Ring Motegi if you're in tonight's Big Power 75. But nonetheless, still going to be entertaining to see these drivers wind it up on corner exit and find momentum and use the draft to make these things go, especially off of turn 2, because you can carry so much more speed in 1 and 2 than you can in 3 and 4. When the designers of Twin Ring Motegi built this track, as we go on board with Derek Rice in the 7th position, they looked at a lot of different tracks and traveled around the United States to determine which track they wanted to replicate and build. And they picked Darlington Raceway, but just changed the banking. But this is the exact same shape as Darlington, so you've got a wider 1 and 2 and a tighter 3 and 4. And you can't necessarily set up the car to be good at both ends of the racetrack. You sort of have to pick one and sacrifice the other. But that's part of the challenge, I think, not only for the crew chiefs and the engineers and everybody who tries to get these cars set up, but also for the drivers, because you can't tackle these sets of corners exactly the same way and expect to be successful either.
Now, I was speaking with Maconi about this, Jeff Maconi in particular, and he mentioned where finding speed is key because of that. Being tight off of turn 2 if you get on the gas too early, but also because it's so easy to miss your entry in turn 3 because it can cause you to push up the track and be extremely tight. A couple of these competitors are doing that, but others looking like they are getting to a solid rhythm here to try and keep the tires cool and try and make sure they don't burn up their equipment right now.
Now, because you still have a lot of time to go and you've got 2 sets of tires available to you in the pits. So, theory here, and maybe we'll let you put your crew chief hat on for a little bit. If this goes green all the way, you're looking at tires every 25 laps. Do you think somebody's going to try and pull that strategy, or are you going to wait a little bit to try and take new tires to make sure that you've got something if we get a late race restart?
That's a good question, because when it comes to the strategy, it depends, of course, with the timing of the caution flags, but it also really depends on how long you're able to push on forward. Some drivers may try and split this race in half, try and make it a one-stop, or others may try and go as long as they can on the fuel to make sure they can have the freshest tires as possible. Drivers can go as long as about 50, 57, 64 laps or so, give or take, on the gas. So there is a wide range that we may see about 10, 15 laps of drivers moving on in, depending on how things flow. But it all depends on if it stays green. That's the critical point.
If it stays green, though, tire wear won't be as significant right now. Cloud cover that you see on the back shoreline all around this Twin Ring Motegi. As we go a little bit further back in the field to Justin Wappam, he's got the ERCR colors on his machine. But for those who don't know, Justin is the manager of content production at RCR. So any of the cool photos, any of the cool graphics that you've seen on those social media streams, JWAP is the man behind all of those. And JWAP is also part of the team that helped put this event together, along with Jeff Maconi, Lee Overton and company, and then Jordan Spoon and Derek Rice, all part of the team that helped to organize the Big Power 75. So personally, I'll say I'm a huge fan of JWAP's work on social, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Can't hit the like button enough when it comes up on my feeds. And if you all want to go find more stuff, just go check RCR socials and see how epic they look. JWAP's the guy more often than not behind the visuals on that, making it look so snazzy. So big credit to him, not only for his work in real life, but also his work tonight in getting this Big Power 75 lined up.
All very impressive, the amount of work that's been put in for this event. And he absolutely does some great work when it comes to everything he does at RCR. But I'm interested as well at the same time in how things are shaping up with this battle up front, because keep in mind, Garrett Maines did not get much practice time here, James, for this race. He got only a few laps in before the start of qualifying, and he's starting to pay the price where he's really looking like he's burnt up his tires and is starting to hit a bit of fall off. Already about half a second of fall off for these competitors, and the other cars are starting to really reel them on in after having a 5-6 car length advantage before.
We just mentioned Jordan Spoon, part of the team that organized this event. He was the fastest car on track last time by with a 36.721. We're a little bit further back in the 8th spot, but he's certainly there as you see a good battle here just up ahead as there goes one car way, way wide, way up the hill in front of Derek Rice and Jordan Spoon. As it's like maybe a little bit of lap traffic there they might be working. It looks like indeed it is. As Greg Lewis tries, or rather Julian Ritchie comes around. He'll get out of the way. Ritchie struggling with connection issues earlier on in this race. That's why he shows up towards the front end of this field. We'll now go another lap down. That'll be 5 laps down that Ritchie is under the gun, unfortunately. Hopefully he'll get a few yellows to make that back, but for the time being, Garrett Maines still in control. This ahead of Pratt and William Hale in third.
Brad doing a really solid job in this race so far. I'm really impressed, though, with William Hale, I will say, because we're talking a little bit with him about how he was trying to focus on the long run, in particular for this race, to try and keep the tires cool and to battle that effects. He did a lot of work to be able to battle that wear, and he's one of the quicker cars on the racetrack. He's been pressurizing LaPrade as well. Each opportunity he's been able to do so. So I'm really impressed with what William Hale has been able to do in this line.
Just sitting in line. Hale, of course, races in real life at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. So he's got both the real and the virtual experience to carry him as you go on board the 62. Just taking it right behind Brian LaPrade, waiting for maybe both drivers ahead of him to make a move, and then it's strung out. It's largely single file all the way through this until you get to about, I believe that might have been, was that Greg Hectus indeed who bounced off of Julian Ricci. So a little bit of intriguing moments as they clear the lap traffic, but you start to see the fan here, you start to see the action. Derek Rice looking to the inside of Jordan Spoon, the RCR folk trying to put in a good battle, but Spoon for the moment maintaining the spot.
All intriguing battles shaping up around this racetrack, and it's absolutely incredible, the atmosphere around this racetrack, because it's such a beautiful facility with the mountainside and scenery around this facility, as well as the history when it comes to Twin Ring Motegi. It's all intriguing, to say the very least, James, with everything from this race. Keep in mind, when they raced here in 1998, it was very cloudy and actually fairly cool. A bit more hotter from that 1998 time, of course, in these track conditions today.
A little bit warmer, and I don't know if we can get these queued up immediately, but we've got some evidence of how cool it was. It was very cool, it was very cloudy, and it was very, very, very chilly. and worth a few puffer coats. These photos that you see on screen, courtesy of one Lenny Baticki, who is now the man behind PRNs at the track. But back in the day, he was a vice president at Richard Childress Racing, and so Lenny made the trip over to Japan for that exhibition race that the Winston Cup drivers ran at Twin Ring Motegi in 1998. Lenny there on the left, you can see chatting with old RC on the right. And these photos from his personal collection as he shared the tale of what it was like. You can get a sense just looking at the general grayness of these photos, just how cold it was that day. Worked on pit road a little bit that day. Did more PR and business deals, but wasn't afraid to grab a squeegee. And then at the end of it all, had a lot of fun working pit stops. You see Rusty Wallace coming in there on the far side. I believe Rusty was in that 2 car that day. There were a lot of different drivers. Gerald Waltrip ran Dale Jarrett's 88. But at the end of it all, big time interviews for Mike Skinner, who won his 2nd race in Japan in a 3-year span. And Lenny looking on as Mike's got a big old smile on his face. Had to fight off Jeff Gordon in the final few laps of that race in order to bring the checker flag home, and letting up the squeegee there in the last shot. So there are more than a few connections here across the podium team and the RCR team in Twin Ring Motegi that we're happy to show off this evening as these drivers continue to battle for the race lead. But all tucked in line for the most part here with Tommy Gossett, who sits in 3rd behind LaPrade and Maines, who have held 1st and 2nd for the majority of this race.
It looks like at the same time, though, I will say LaPrade has been wanting to make a few moves with how he's been diving. Some other competitors are keeping nice and steady. Travis Martin has been having a quiet run, just trying to stick at the bottom of the racetrack. He's trying to make some moves as well, and Michael Peters, so looking nice and smooth. And of course, Travis Martin does some streaming across the iRacing platform as well. But the biggest movers overall of note, Brent Pancari up 10 positions, and for a little while, Taylor Burris had been up plus 12 at one point. He got just shuffled back a little while ago to 21st position.
Taylor Burris with the old school paint scheme. I don't know if we can get a look at it, but doesn't that feel very, very now I would almost say NASCAR Racing 3 and 2 more so than anything that we've seen in the iRacing. I believe officially that might be 1 or 2, Justin Prince. I don't know if anybody wants to confirm that, but that's old school papyrus that Burris is rocking with tonight.
Very old school indeed, especially with that old NASCAR logo. And some of these drivers definitely following the feel of this type of event indeed. But to get back towards the action too, keep in mind these drivers have talked about how, for some of them, it's been all about the balance of making sure you get yourself lined up. Some describe it almost similar in terms of the intriguiness of a super speedway race with the long straightaways here at this facility. And we're seeing that draft really come into play if you can time up the run right. It's looking like Gossett wants to go.
Gossett, I think, does want to try and force the issue. He got a good run off of turn 2, looking to the inside of Brian LaPrade, trying to get 2nd, but nothing yet. He'll tuck back in line and make sure that William Hale doesn't get a run on him. Meanwhile, just further back of that, Andrew Navarro to the inside of Presley Sora, with Jordan Spoon waiting in the wings and waiting to see who he needs to follow to maybe get a spot as the 2 drivers ahead of him battle for position.
A little bit of shuffling as you see as well with Spoon on the move. And keep in mind, Spoon was one of the fastest drivers in final practice. Someone that's also picking up speed more and more with each lap. He's running a 1/10 of a second quicker than the leaders in cleaner space. He's got some great pace in that race car.
Lots of pace indeed. As you look at the top 10 drivers there, everybody back to Greg Hectus running in 9th, all in line waiting here. If anybody wants to try and pull off some strategy, we're coming up on the 3rd mark of this race. You could see some drivers come in, and I would think some towards the back of the field may well try and come in here in a lap or so to try and split this up and go 3 stints and 25 laps. Mitchell Robinson we look on now. He's in 15th, working around Tyler Powers. David Cabrera's around him, and Brett Pancari, who we mentioned, who's got the high line rolling nicely as Pancari goes up to 13th, now up 12 spots from where he started 25th on the grid. Justin Prince, you called it earlier. Pancari has this track pretty well figured out already.
Was one of the quickest drivers in practice overall, as I believe we may just notice right there. William Hale was very close to scraping the wall that time and just lost himself the bottom.
just ever so slightly lost it as Hale leaves the door open for Sora. They just about touch. I think they might have touched coming out of 2. Jordan Spoon waiting to see who's going to win this one. He'll stay up high. Sora lost the momentum, though, coming down the back straightaway, and he'll draw back into the clutches of Spoon as Hale maintains the spot, at least for the moment, but for how much longer? I think that's the bigger question.
And the big thing, too, is if they fight for too long, the side draft winner can potentially lose them the touch of the draft from Briar LaPrade, so they have to be smart with the timing of how they try and make these passes.
Have to be very, very intelligent about this, especially because Garrett Maines is beginning to inch away from this group. But we'll take a quick break here and just get a few words in from some of our partners, but don't go anywhere. More coverage of the Big Power 75 from Richard Childress Racing and Maconi Setup Shop coming your way from iRacing's virtual Twin Ring Motegi on Podium Esports.
Your future in high-performance motorsports begins at the University of Northwestern Ohio.
It wasn't just flashy, show-and-tell kind of stuff. It was a really high-tech university with lots of hands-on experience.
With 70% hands-on learning, no out-of-state tuition, and top-of-the-line instructors, you'll go from learning to earning with the industry leader in motorsports education.
Being at UNOH, that's my best bet to make it somewhere in the racing industry.
Your journey to the fast lane begins at UNOH.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the Big Power 75 from Richard Childress Racing and Maconi Setup Shop. James Pike, Justin Prince, and Ryan Bauer in the wings. And as they battle for the race lead, we remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Maconi Setup Shop, your home for iRacing setups, the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports. From legends to kept cars, they've got you covered with dirt setups available for late models, modifieds, and wing sprint cars as well. At Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories. And the newest book, How I Drive, with a foreword from NASCAR Cup Series driver Anthony Alfredo, is now available on the website as well, which you can visit by entering MaconiSetupShop.com into your web browser today. Tommy Gossett has cleared Garrett Maines for the race lead. That's our first major lead change of the evening. First one since Maines took up the lead on the second lap of this race. Briar LaPrade still sitting in third. Then Hale, then Navarro, and then a good battle between Presley Sora, Jordan Spoon, and Derek Rice for 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Some great battles all throughout the field. It's been incredible how Tommy Gossett was able to pull his way on forward. He was somebody who talked about how it was so important to be able to balance the tightness of the car as well as balancing that right front tire. Presley Sora was also in that camp when it comes to saving, but at the same time, I think right now these grouping of cars are trying to find a way to get themselves back up to Navarro, try and get themselves within a few more tenths of a second to be able to try and pounce as we are approaching that halfway point of the race, and we may see drivers duck down towards that mark.
Tires can go longer than 25 laps. They can go longer 30, longer than 35 even. But if you're splitting this up, again, 25, 25, 25 like we talked about. So it's all about where you pit and whether or not you think we will see an incident that will shape who ends up being a big winner on pit strategy and who doesn't, as there's contact there just ahead of Brett Poncari. That was Daniel Hendry and Michael Peters who got into it. Peters went way up the racetrack. I suppose they raised some cane amongst those two, or should I see myself out and just leave myself at the door there, Justin?
A nice solid pun indeed, but these drivers are trying to make sure they get their tires to stick through these corners and make sure they don't have too much fighting once when they heat their tires up. Navarro is somebody that's known for being really strong when it comes to these types of races. He's looking very consistent when it comes to his marks. Also someone with a very strong sense of humor. Is a bit of traffic in front.
Contact there with Briar LaPrade and one of the lap machines as LaPrade bounced off of the 34 of Cameron Iverson coming down the straightaway. Iverson with heavy right side damage, and now LaPrade's got some damage as well. Makes me wonder if he may consider using the fast repair when he comes down pit road later tonight.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we talked a little bit about the 1998 race in the battle up towards the front with Skinner and his strong performance in that race. Keep in mind there was one incident at that time where it was down the back straightaway where Gordon got contact to the door. and had to deal with the damage the rest of the way. A bit of damage now for Hale as a result of bouncing off the wall there down the middle of the straightaway.
He bounced off the wall middle of the straightaway. Yeah, if you want credentials on how much of a nerd I am on this, that I do remember that it was, in fact, Motohiro Nakagi who ended up dooring Jeff Gordon as Nakagi spun, just gassed up too quickly off of turn 2 and looped down to the inside of the wall. And it was only about, what, lap 30 of 200, I think, that Nakagi hit the fence, but he got into Gordon and doored Gordon pretty well. There was a solid cave in the right side of Gordon's car for the vast majority of that race, and he still was able to finish second. If that race had been probably, what, 10, 15 laps longer, probably would have won it. So even if you've got some right side damage, it might not necessarily be a killer so far as your chances to win the race are concerned, even though you're moving fast enough that aerodynamics definitely matter, no question about it.
Yeah, the aero definitely matters today with this type of car, but with the potential to get that damage fixed when you come down to the pit lane, it's not the end-all be-all as long as you don't let it build up and snowball in your mind as a driver. So you have to be able to put that at the back of your mind and just try and get yourself to that pit window. As all this traffic has allowed these two to break away from the rest of the pack.
They break away from the rest of the pack. Tommy Gossett about half a lap from bringing us to the halfway point of the Big Power 75, and that means it gives us the opportunity to bring you our iRacing Midway Race Break, which is always brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the world of outlaws, and more. Tommy Gossett is your race leader ahead of Garrett Maines. Andrew Navarro holds the third spot. Fourth belongs to Briar LaPrade. William Hale rides in fifth. Sixth, Jordan Smoot, part of the organization team for this Big Power 75. Up in the top 10, as is Presley Sora and Derek Rice, who's also part of that team with J-Wam. Greg Hectus rides in the ninth position, and 10th belongs to Travis Martin, Mr. Ghostman himself.
Mr. Ghostman doing a very solid job. Brent McCarty in 11th spot. Daniel Hendry, known for short track abilities, in 12th position. Michael Peters in 13th. Power Powers using the power of driving, be able to hold on to 14th. Robinson 15th. That's shuffling around a little bit with some drivers in those positions, with Robinson shuffling out to 16th, with Kessler to 15th. Rob Peterson in 17th. David Cabrera 18th. Charlie Brown is up to 19th. Craig Lewis rounds out the top 20.
21st in this race is Jay Wap himself, Justin Wapham, content producer at Richard Childress Racing, the head of the organization of this event. From the RCR side of things, Dylan Connolly, Decon in the 95 is 22nd. 23rd is Dontre Graves. We'll talk about Dontre a little bit later on in this broadcast. John Timms in 24th, and 25th, Drew Halloran is the last car on the lead lap. 26th is where you'll find Clayton Davis. John Coe rides in 27th. 28th is Brandon Bullock. Trevor Vogel rides 29th, and 30th is Lee Overton.
31st is Josh Stoltz. He's among the drivers who have already ducked down for a pit stop in the past couple laps or so. You also have Greg Maconi, S.E. Martin, Taylor Burris, Jeffrey Maconi, Jason Coe, Cameron Iverson, Jason Overton rounding out the top 38, and Julian Ritchie, 27 laps down, 39th position at the moment.
Tough night for Richie with all the connection issues as they go door to door for the lead, or maybe, yes, too wide for the lead there, and Dale Earnhardt joins the party, I guess. We probably need to talk about that. There's a lot we need to talk about, but we'll first remind you that that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. And with over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser-scanned tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. Now, if you were paying attention over the course of the weekend as they continue to go door-to-door for P1, and Garrett Maines tries to run the top side, but there's Gossett who got loose underneath him, so Maines will retake the top spot. But you saw over the course of the weekend, the 4 hours in Charlotte benefiting the National Multiple Sclerosis Society that you were a part of, Justin Prince. We had the newly anointed executive producer of iRacing as Garrett Maines just about went around there. He checked up to avoid one lap car that was stuck up by and got run into by Tommy Gossett. But as I was saying, Greg Hill, newly promoted executive producer of iRacing, went on the broadcast and talked about rain. So we got some rain updates and got a better sense of when we might see that and how hard the iRacing team has been working to bring rain into the sim. But we can tell you, just announced on Twitter less than an hour ago, we can confirm per Dale Earnhardt Jr. himself that we are going to see Hickory Motor Speedway arrive in iRacing with the upcoming September build. And this is going to be a fun one. I'll tell you what. If you all see that booth off to the right-hand side of the tower, that's where I was sitting last night working the Throwback 276 for the Cars Tour and Cars Tour TV. This place is a staple for the Cars Tour, a staple of short track racing in North Carolina, the self-proclaimed birthplace of the NASCAR stars. And when you look at the list of track champions there, Ned Jarrett is on it. You've got Robert Huffman on it. You've got Dexter Knight on it. You've got Harry Gant on it. You've got Ryan Millington on it. You've got Matt McCall on it. You've got so many famous people. It's going to be awesome to see Hickory arrive in the sim. And I know for that Tuesday when we finally get our hands on it, I'll be a little bit busy to say the least.
Yeah, I know you love that track, especially with your personal experiences indeed. And I think many drivers are going to be pumped up once it gets towards that mark for the sim indeed. It's going to be one of the most popular tracks potentially in short track racing on iRacing. So it's all very intriguing to see as things are getting very chaotic, though, James, up around the race leaders. Some of the drivers who are trying to split the race in half are making things difficult for Gossett. Here comes Maines.
You've got all sorts of different strategies and people all over the place. Brian LaPrade has already come down pit road. That much we can tell you. Waiting to see when the rest of this field is going to come down. And when we mean rest of the field, namely the top six, all of whom have not pitted. Maines, Gossett, Navarro, Hale, Peters, and Charlie Brown. That sextet yet to come in for service and slower than everybody else by about 2 seconds per lap.
Expecting some stops coming in this time by. As you see, Tommy Gossett cycles back up to the front. Garrett Maines has elected to come down for a stop. A bit of contact, though, once more. Gossett came down right across Andrew Navarro's nose.
Look at Navarro, look at Gossett and company there from Presley Sora. You've got Jordan Spoon on fresh rubber in the mix too. Sora and Spoon on the new tires. Navarro and Gossett on the old tires. And it's completely logjam on the back straightaway as Cameron Iverson and Greg Hectus just wait this one out. We'll see who ends up jumping out ahead of all of this, but a yellow flag out on the racetrack. Daniel Hendry, I believe, the reason for our first caution of the evening as he spun all the way through the middle of 3 and 4 and loops it around there, coming out of 4 onto the front straightaway.
Way too much speed going into turn 3 there, trying to get to the inside of Brown. And once he started to the apex, he just absolutely drifted his way for a good half a corner. A great job to prevent severe damage. But you can tell just how much he had to saw at that wheel to avoid the attenuator as well as to make sure he didn't drift back up into traffic.
And so, what a break for the 5 drivers who had stayed out. Garrett Maines just came down pit road, so he'll be okay. But for Gossett, Navarro, Hale, Peters, and Brown, they'll all get to come down pit road and get service without losing too much track position. It's a big, big, big win, I think, for them.
I think it's an absolute win for a couple of those competitors. It's exactly what they were looking for, especially for drivers like Navarro at this point for his strategy situation. Charlie Brown, I think, benefits the most out of this, though. He was towards the tail end of the lead lap, and I believe he's able to just stick on that said lead lap now and gain a lot of positions out of all this.
So Gossett, Navarro, you see Hale a little bit further back, Peters and Brown. They're so spaced out that you're not really going to have too much of a battle on pit road, save for these two. Dead center of the screen, Navarro in that blue and black 42, and then Gossett in the Harvick-esque Shell Pennzoil S number 10 machine. Going to go at it and see who wins the battle off of pit road, as William Hale, I think, stopped short in his box just a bit and had to correct to get into his stall. That'll cost him a little bit of time, but Gossett will try and beat the 42 out of pit road, but not enough speed, and Andrew Navarro takes over that top spot coming off of pit lane, and he first went off of pit road as we will go side by side one more time, bring you some more words from our partners, but don't go anywhere. More coverage of the Big Power 75 from the virtual Twin Ring Motegi Speedway coming up on Podium Esports. When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Maconi Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Maconi Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MaconiSetupShop.com and learn why Maconi Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the Big Power 75 from Richard Childress Racing, Maconi Setup Shop. James Pike, Justin Prince up in the booth with Brian Bauer producing all the visuals this evening. Cameras provided to us by Dougie Beard. Tonight's broadcast is presented proudly by the University of Northwestern Ohio. Located in Lima, Ohio, they're the leader in high-performance motorsports educated. If you're interested in a career in racing, you can get the inside track and the high-performance motorsports industry with a degree from UNOH. Graduates of UNOH are among the world's best high-performance motorsports technicians, and from high performance to automotive, agriculture to diesel and robotics, the University of Northwestern Ohio has a program just for you. Begin your education at the university that started it all. For more information, go to www.unoh.edu. While we're under yellow, it gives us the opportunity to talk about some of the paint jobs and some of the folks who've helped make this race possible. We mentioned earlier Justin Wapham, Derek Rice, and all the folks on the RCR side of things. I want to make sure Jordan Spoon gets a nudge there too. We haven't talked a lot about the Maconi Setup Shop side of things, but we can zoom in on the 03, and that is Jeff Maconi himself that is running, I guess that's a famous paint scheme, Justin Prince. I feel like I've seen it somewhere, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, I think that's very familiar to say the very least from a certain era, obviously. But it's an absolutely beautiful paint scheme to say the very least for Jeffrey Maconi to run for tonight's race. As I believe we got a delayed yellow here.
We do have a delayed yellow, so, but he's in this race. I think we've also got company Lee Overton, who's one of the big setup builders in the MSS Empire, running the 16 car. He's also in this race as the lights are on the pace car one more time. There's a shot at Lee's car. I want to make sure he gets credit, as do Greg Maconi, and I believe there's another Overton that I might have missed it. I thought there was another Overton. Jason's off track, but you've got Lee and his brother, and then you got the Maconi brothers racing in tonight's show, in addition to Jordan and Derek and Jay Wow, which is also fantastic. So a big thanks to the folks at Maconi Setup Shop and RCR for putting this race together. There you see Greg Maconi's scheme as the lights come off the pace car this time by. Another person that we'd be remiss not to mention in this race, and one who gets a special shout out, not only for the work that he does pretty regularly, both behind the camera and on social media, but also as part of the Digger Mashing squad in the Race Car People Sports League in the Charlotte area, is the number 21 of Dontre Graves, who currently rides in the 29th position. Dontre, one of the social media coordinators for NASCAR social media team. So if you've seen their content on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever. Dontre's probably had a hand in it. Also, a pretty good baseball player, too. You leave it over to the plate, and he will send it a good solid 300 yards. But tonight, looking to try and send it towards the front of the field. And yet another beautiful NASCAR Harris Lou design ski. It's one that we've seen more than a few times on Monday Night Racing, similar to the one that we see DJ Cummings run, who also is at NASCAR. But good to see Dontre in this race, a friend of ours at Podium Esports, and we'll keep our eyes peeled on the number 21 as he potentially makes a charge to the field late on in this race. But we'll go back to green flag racing on lap 51 of 75. Maines, Navarro, Gossett, Hale, Peters, and Brad also came down pit road as well. So that group in on tires, set to go, basically on the same cycle as Barney the Flagman gets us going once again. Maines takes off early on in the box, and he is clear by maybe one, maybe two, maybe three car lengths before they even get to turn one.
Nice launch for Garrett Maines. He is dealing with a bit of damage. He didn't get his rear bumper fixed during his pit stop, so that may impact him just a little bit. But some of these drivers trying to battle 2 near 3 wide, trying to defend all the way to the middle of the racetrack.
Big moves there from Gossett and Navarro, and big move there from William Hale too to get to the inside of Gossett as the Pratt will just follow along right in tow behind the 62. He'll make a charge down on the inside. Gossett will keep it wound up on the outside. Navarro will try and run down Maines, who still is your leader, but not by all that much.
Yeah, I expect that gap to come down a little bit. As we've seen with the last run, Maines was reeled on in after about 10 laps. He's been really strong on the short run so far. Right now, Hale trying to provide pressure to Gossett, though. Gossett seems to be slipping up just a little bit with having to deal with that dirty air again.
Maines continuing to lead this group. Navarro continuing to give chase on one car slide up top. I think that was Charlie Brown who went sideways, but he's also in the same tire cycle as everybody up at the front of this field as we're seeing folks shuffle between green and purple times. So the fastest laps of this Big Power 75 being run on lap 53 of 75 as these drivers work towards 20 laps to go. You start to see them fan out on the back straightaway. Here comes William Hale to the inside of Tommy Gossett.
Trying to get towards the quarter panel to try and side draft. Will Gossett give him the space is the big question. The answer is no. Gossett's trying to give him a bit of a pinch, trying to hold him up in terms of momentum coming off of turn 4. A big bobble from Hale.
Big bobble from Hale, and that's something we've seen all night. It's just really hard for these drivers to carry momentum if they're exiting these corners on the inside. It's so much easier to ride that top line and carry momentum high, especially with this package.
Yeah, that's so critical to be able to defend on that second line that comes into play at many racetracks, and we've seen it come to play absolutely here, where if you are on the outside, you can pinch on down. What a send from Gossett, though, we just seen up the road, able to dive bomb it underneath Navarro to clear by him by a car length.
Just waiting for the next big move here. Maybe it comes from Tommy Gossett, who drove it deep into 1 and 2, but you're going to see Maines begin to stretch it on corner exit unless Gossett had it really well hooked up there. Looks like he actually did. Got a great run through 1 and 2 that last time by. As we go a little bit further back with Derek Rice, he's right behind Greg Cactus and Nick Kessler, whose name we've not called much tonight, but Kessler beginning to show up deep in this race as Gossett continues to give chase to the leader, Garrett Maines.
Really providing the pressure. Gossett has been looking strong on the long run. Looked also well when it comes to lining up the draft. Just Maines sending it a little bit deeper compared to Tommy Gossett. I think that's part of the difference that we've seen from some of these competitors. The Pratt is also along those same lines where he's just waiting for his opportunity to build up momentum to try and attack Navarro.
Also, small editorial correction. Earlier when I was talking about Dontre Graves and his ability to hit a ball 300 yards, I meant 300 feet. But you come to the Race Car People Sports League in Charlotte, you would think he could hit it a little bit further and could maybe hit it potentially 900 feet because the man's got some pop. He played college ball at Jackson State University down in Mississippi, so he knows how to get it done. As we have another yellow flag out on the racetrack and trouble somewhere here. See if we can get a look at the replay and figure out what happened, but may actually have been J-Wop himself who ended up in trouble. A little bit of contact with Taylor Burris coming out of turn 2.
Oh, Taylor. An interesting moment there, and this is exactly what drivers were talking about. If you get too early in the gas right about here, you just get tight. He started just pushing up and up and up right into the door of the 31. And J-Wop with a great save to try and keep the momentum forward. A tough break for him and lights up the tires. That insult to injury, unfortunately, for him.
Does light up the tires. Also gives us an interesting strategy play. Somebody is going to come in here, I think. Somebody. Don't quite know who. Oh, maybe how about everybody's going to come in here for tires? You would think, at least amongst a good chunk of the top 10, but we got a few folks that are staying out. Michael Peters is going to try and, for the second time tonight, raise some cane to the Raising Cane Chevy Camaro. He will stay out on the racetrack and assume the race lead, and everybody else, save for Daniel Hendry, is coming in. So Hendry's going to go from about maybe 15th to 2nd, albeit on the old rubber.
Yeah, I think this is the gamble of saying they expect the potential caution to come into play to be able to utilize that set later. And we've seen, though, the fall-off is only about half a second difference, about 10 laps. But tonight our gambles, William Hale elected to take 2 tires to try and get up in front of the rest of the pack here.
So Hale will go with the 2-tire gamble, and he will jump out ahead of everybody on the racetrack and be the first car off of pit road. I think Presley Sora also made the same gamble. Quick stop for him, 9 seconds in and out of the box. So 2 drivers who took 2 tires. Everybody else that came down pit road, which looks like it was about maybe pretty much everybody else in the lead lap, just about, ends up with 4 tires.
Here, this is all going to be very critical now, these tire sets and how this gamble pays off. And I think some of these drivers are just hoping that the clean air is going to benefit them the most and see how it plays out. I think this is going to be intense on the restart. We might see 3-4 wide down the back straightaway with some of these competitors, with some of the momentum that can be built up with the fresher rubber.
Lights will stay on the pace car here and continue to get stuff sorted, but as we have a moment under the yellow flag, gives us the opportunity to tell you all about an event coming up in the world of podium esports over the course of August, the Retro 500, which you can sign up for now on the Podium Esports website at podiumesports.com/Retro 500. We're taking the 1987 Chevrolet Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird to Darlington Raceway, and we'll have 4 qualifying races on Wednesday nights throughout August. You finish top 10 in any one of those 4 qualifying races, you guarantee yourself a slot in the big show. Labor Day, Monday night proper, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 367 laps, 500 miles, $500 to the winner. Thanks to our friends at Boosted, Tom Morano and company, making things happen behind the scenes and doing a great job as usual. But you can jump in and have a lot of fun with that. Go to podiumesports.com/Retro 500. The first qualifying race is at 9 p.m. this Wednesday night, August 4th. You're going to see it on Podium Esports, and it's just one of the many events that we have coming up this week. Tomorrow night, Monday Night Racing concludes the round of 10. We're taking the trucks to Talladega. It's a big night, too. Adam Alexander's on the broadcast. Dave Moody's on the broadcast. And I will be on the broadcast as well. And all 3 of us will be broadcasting from the Steve Burns Studios at Fox Sports Charlotte campus for the very first time. A broadcast you will not want to miss. Pre-race starts at 7:45 p.m. Eastern on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, as well as the Podium Facebook, Podium YouTube, and MNR Twitter page. Then, the following night, the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series heads to Watkins Glen International. As the run to the playoffs continue, we got 10 winners. We might not have enough room in the playoffs for all the race winners. Winning a race might not be the guarantee that you need it to be to get into the playoffs. That broadcast starts 8:30 p.m. Tuesday night on iRacing's Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube channels. Then the aforementioned first of 4 Retro 500 qualifying races comes your way on the main Podium Esports Twitch channel, 9 p.m. Wednesday night. You finish top 10, you make it into the feature race. And oh, by the way, there are only 11 drivers signed up for that at the moment. So if you sign up to run Wednesday night, you have a good chance of making it into the feature and running against some pretty big names. How about Malik Gray of Space Station Gaming for one? Then the NASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series also heads to Watkins Glen. Both races will be on the Podium Esports and Podium 2 Twitch channel. You'll see those races Thursday night at 9 p.m. And then the NASCAR Cup Series powered by MPI goes 100% racing. Full 267 laps from Kansas Speedway coming your way next Sunday night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. Michael Peters is your race leader. He, Daniel Hendry, and Craig Lewis did not come down pit road. They are your top three in this race as we go green flag racing with 15 laps to go, 16 laps to go, some form of laps to go, and they're already going to fan out into one.
And already Garrett Main's taking drivers 3 wide to get around some of the competitors on the older tires. This is going to get hectic, though, I think, right now with William Hale trying to build up that run on Daniel Hendry to try and get by him. LaPrade also trying to take advantage of this side by side.
Hale is there. Gossett sends it way down to the inside as Hale gave a shot to Hendry, and Gossett is going to take advantage of it and then get into Hendry, and Hendry's going to go sideways in front of the field, bounce off of Garrett Maines. Somehow they haven't totally wrecked just yet, but they're all over the place. The yellow flag finally comes out on the front straightaway, and I almost think that was preventative because everybody was left, right, sideways, over, under on the front stretch, and we were about 2 seconds away from having about 20 cars piled up right by the start and finish line.
That was an absolutely incredible save by Garrett Maines, because let me tell you, that is not easy to try and make sure you don't correct into the field like that. He had to go near full reverse lock just about, it seemed, to avoid that. But here's the incident that caused all this. Hale got a great run, trying to build momentum down the back straightaway. But once they got to turn 3, the difference of the grip affected the braking marks a little bit earlier from the 71 on the brakes, checked everyone up, and then calamity ensued.
Big move there. Gossett gets into Hendry, and Maines somehow picked up the damage, as did Navarro. But Maines should have been probably right into the pit road attenuator with the way he was exiting turn 4. I would argue it's a minor miracle that he didn't end up head on into that fence. But even still, that's Coke Series skill levels for you, but that's also maybe Garrett Maines at a Podium Esports broadcast. No driver in the history of Podium Esports has more victories on a podium broadcast than the man out of Powhatan, Virginia. And he will probably need to use a faster pair, and maybe will come down pit road to burn up that final set of tires. But with the speed he's had, I'm not going to rule out the possibility that Garrett Maines could run through this field and maybe make something of it in the end.
See how things play out here with 12 laps to go, and this puts Gossett in an interesting spot. He's actually coming in.
Tommy Gossett coming down pit road from second. There's a big call that I don't think any of us expected. So Gossett's in along with Greg Lewis and Craig Hectus. A few other drivers a little bit further back in the field coming down too. But Tommy Gossett, who's been top 5 in this race all night long, coming down pit road with just over 10 laps to go. He wants the fresh rubber, and he's going to try and make up the track position in the end and try and shoot his way to the front.
I believe he may have got an EOL penalty as well to serve for that contact through turns 3 and 4, so that may explain part of that there. Either way, this really changes the complexions up front, because this really makes things intriguing. Presley Sora, we talked about on 2 tires. William Hale on 2 tires up towards the front. You have Peter still on the old rubber for the next 11, 12 laps to go, and he's now made his bed. And then this all sets things up for Briar LaPrade and Jordan Spoon to be able to try and pounce and take advantage.
And can confirm Race Control did give us the word as we were talking about it that it is going to be a EOL penalty for Tommy Gossett for his role in the incident. Got into Daniel Hendry, sent him sideways, so Gossett gets the penalty, at which point you might as well take the fresh tires anyway. For those who might be interested in partnering with Podium Esports, we have space available for you. Podium Esports is a plan for every budget and can custom tailor solutions to suit your needs best. For more information on the wide variety of partnership possibilities, send an email to admin@podiumesports.com. As the lights go off and Michael Peters is the last driver out there on old tires, everybody else around him on fresh rubber. and that stretches all the way back to Hendry, who's currently scored in 12th. But even then, the only other driver with more than 10 laps on his tires in this field, David Cabrera, back in 28.
And that's, I think, a little bit too far back to be able to pounce, obviously, with Cabrera in 28th. But this could be anybody's race, honestly, in these closing stages with how things could fare out and the different strategies coming out. It's been impressive to see the pace, though, from some of these competitors like Sora, LaPrade, Spoon, and Rice position themselves for this prime opportunity for this restart.
Michael Peters, black and white. And I'll be the first to admit, I do love me some good chicken fingers, and that company on his hood makes some pretty good chicken fingers, I must say. But he's going to have a whole host of drivers trying to raise a little bit more than just Kane behind him, because everybody else is on fresh rubber. And it's going to take maybe the widest rear bumper Peters has ever had to either maintain the lead or maintain enough track position to where he could justify pitting under the yellow if we get another yellow. But we're starting to get down to the end of it too. This will be 10 laps to go when they cross the stripe. We do have 3 green white checkers, but you're not going to have a lot of time. And I think more importantly, so many people are probably going to stay out. So many people have burned that last set of tires and or don't want to give up the track position. And I don't know what you'd even think of expecting if you end up coming down this late and you end up buried about 20th or so in the race.
You expect a lot of luck and a lot of things to happen, to say the very least. In other words, you expect things to get very busy, James. And I think we're going to get very busy on this restart either way, with how things can fare out, especially with how defensive these drivers may get down the straightaways, with how close things have gone. And if I'm drivers like Briar LaPrade, I'm saying if I'm able to build up the run properly and have an opportunity to take the position, I have to make the move, because you may not get that opportunity again.
Yeah, we're going to see some aggression, to say the least. That's going to be the fun piece of this. Also note, Garrett Maines, I think, has elected to keep the damage on his car. He's not burning his fast repair just yet, which I think also speaks to just how much he thinks we've not seen the last of the nuttiness at the end of this Big Power 75 from Richard Childress Racing and Maconi Setup Shop. As Peters is the control car, he goes pretty early in the box too, but couldn't quite get the run he needed on the old tires. So William Hale will be able to stay even and then drop to the inside and potentially make a run off of 2, as Hale, Sora, LaPrade company all looking to chase down Peters and take away the race lead from that 27. Here comes Hale on the inside. Sora slides up top to block Briar LaPrade, and you've got Derek Rice in the mix there too.
And Hale may have to try something different here with the defensive line from Peters. What a send into the corner by Hale.
Big send from William Hale, who will try and roll up high. As there was almost contact there. There might have been contact from Michael Peters, but he'll slide out of the way. Sora will come to the top. Now Sora drops to the bottom to try and get the race lead. LaPrade now up to 3rd, Peters to 4th, and then the ERCR teammates Rice and Spoon right there in 5th and 6th.
And this is now falling towards LaPrade's prime opportunity to pounce here. He's got the French tires in turns of 4, and 1 car spinning around to the backdrop. I believe that was Navarro.
Andrew Navarro hard into the fence, and a few more going with him. Trouble all over the place. Yellow flag out again. Navarro was the first to go around. I don't think he was the last. We'll see if we can get a good shot of the replay and figure out who else went around, but lots of trouble on the back straightaway within the last 10 laps of the Big Power 75. Daniel Hendry, I think, might have been one of the others.
And you see with the replay here, just a little bit of a bobble coming off the corner from one of the cars in front, slides right into the inside wall, and a couple more cars indeed, as you mentioned. Hendry colliding in a secondary incident that happened just up the road from them.
Clayton Davis was the other car that got caught up in this, along with Daniel Hendry, and I think maybe one in the very, very back. Craig Lewis also got some damage coming off of turn 2 as well. He just, I think, overdrove the corner, just got on the gas too quick and looped himself into the wall in about the same spot that Motohiro Nakaji hit it. If you were listening to our broadcast earlier, we talked about that incident in the 98 race where he wrecked in turn 2. It was almost identical there for Lewis in terms of placement on that inside wall. But more importantly, at the very front of this field, William Hale is now your race leader, and Michael Peters is on old tires and now in 5th. And I would almost think that either you're hanging on for a good finish or you're betting to try and win this thing.
I'm waiting to see if anyone thinks about that scenario right now, but the true test is going to be how Hale and Sora try and defend to the fresher tire drivers in terms of the 4 behind, because we've seen the grip levels and how they've been able to run. They've been able to stick well on 2 tires, though, off these restarts so far.
Also of note in all of this, worth noting that Rice, Spoon, and Peters are all in the same Discord server at the moment and all chatting together on team communications. So they'll have the ability to work together and try and figure this out from about, what, 4th, 5th, 6th on the restart when we get going. I would think, especially in a case like this, that's going to be a huge advantage for all 3 of them.
I think so, too. It's going to be able to help them sync things up, say, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of a bump draft, try and give you a little more momentum. All that's definitely going to factor in for how things could play out. So that communication is going to be critical in teamwork, especially if you want to try and make this move on Hale for the race win.
William Hale, we know how much of a fighter he can be on restarts, how tricky he can make things for folks, and it won't be easy for Sora, it won't be easy for LaPrade, but to Sora and LaPrade's credit, they both got experience in some of the biggest races in iRacing and some of the biggest places. Both of them veterans of the Podium 500 that you see here in February. We obviously talked earlier in the night about Brian LaPrade's big victory and the NASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series at Homestead, Miami last week. He knows how to get it done. Sora, a Moon Car vet who's got victories over there to his name. So it's not like the size of the stage, I think, is going to frighten either one of them.
Yeah, they've got some great confidence when it comes to being able to make bold moves and knowing when to make the move at the right time. We've seen LaPrade, for example, stay calm and composed, having to defend several drivers and try and reel in competitors from a few seconds back. I think he's in a great spot to be able to try and do that. So all that plays in that experience to LaPrade's favor as well. Personally, Sora, we've also seen him do similar things in the past in many different races. So he's someone I think could also play a major factor in all this despite being on the 2 tires. So there's so many different ways this can all break down in terms of the timing of everything, in terms of how defensive it's about to get, but also how the move gets done and how calculated these drivers can be.
And where they make the move. I've got some fresh experience from it as the lights go off the pace car. We had a great battle between Mason Diaz and Josh Berry in the late model stock portion of the Throwback 276 for the Cars Tour last night. And Diaz made his move in 1 and 2 on the last lap. Had a feeling it might have been a little bit too early for Diaz. He looked like he had enough momentum to carries to where he might have been able to get to Josh Berry on 3 and 4, but couldn't. That sort of thing also, I think, is going to factor in here, too, because there is the possibility that someone tries to make the move too early and doesn't wait late enough to get the job done. That also, I think, plays into this, too.
And here's the thing, too. You want to get it done cleanly, in particular. And some of the moves done have been absolutely impressive dives to be able to clear on by turn 3. I think that's where you get the job done, by building up enough momentum down the backstretch, try and get as low as you can to the bottom, and make it stick without making door-to-door contact. If you can do that, I think you're golden to try and fight for this race win.
And who maybe slides up from the bottom on-corner exit. We've seen that a few times already in the virtual Twin Ring Motegi. I think we could see that again here in this restart, which will leave us with 3 laps to go in the Big Power 75. Good restart there from William Hale. Sora spun the tires a bit, but Pratt even with Jordan Spoon and Derek Bryce as they continue to fan out behind for about the 6th or 7th position.
A couple of the drivers already diving their way to the bottom to try and get sorted, regroup, including a couple, 3 of the 8 in particular, but LaPrade with a great run off at the corner.
Brian LaPrade with a good run. Cars wrecking further back in the field. They're going to bounce across each other. Big wreck in the back, and there was no way that wasn't going to be a yellow. I saw the ricochet coming back onto the surface, and it was absolutely on from there. A big incident. Craig Lewis also tied up in this, and a lot of cars torn up in this incident. Further back, get a good look here on board with Jeff Maconi, and I've been warned that this could be painful. We're probably about to see why, as Maconi is just there on the bottom hanging out. You see Craig Lewis go down to the bottom and nowhere for Maconi to go. Big trouble there. He gets involved. I saw Dontre Graves end up with some damage. We mentioned Craig Lewis already. Lots of people torn up here. The 39 of Rob Peterson also involved in this. Is a lot of cars going all over the place at the very end of this race.
Yeah, just absolutely nowhere for Maconi to go in that situation, just with the timing of that. But here's another view from Graves indeed. See the ricochet? Nowhere for Graves to go either, as he gets spun down the racetrack into the inside wall.
Everything happening so quickly there that when you see these cars get turned around and torn up, it's especially at that speed, you are very much a passenger, and there's at least, I would say, 6 figures of virtual damage amongst the cars involved in that incident. But again, thankfully, all virtual damage, not real damage. So worst you can leave here with is a little bit of hurt pride. Certainly no injuries of any actual proper physical pieces of things that matter, and that's all well and good at the end of the day. As we remind you of some of the events that you will see in the world of Podium Esports and iRacing coming up over the course of the next week. You've got the Monday Night Racing Playoffs. Truck Series is going racing at Talladega Super Speedway tomorrow night. Pre-race 7:45, broadcast at 8. Adam Alexander, Dave Moody, the Fox Sports Studios, the Steve Burns Studios in particular. I would be remiss not to touch on the legendary pit reporter who we lost far too early, but all the action coming your way on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, the Podium Facebook and YouTube pages, and the Monday Night Racing Twitter page tomorrow night. You won't want to miss that. And then head to iRacing's Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube for the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series from Watkins Glen, Tuesday night, August 3rd, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, starting from pre-race there. The following night, 9 p.m. Eastern, you've got the first of 4 qualifying races for the Retro 500. The 1987 Chevy Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird in action from the virtual Darlington Raceway to see who advances into the main on Labor Day for a shot of $500. Podium Esports Twitch channel will have that race, and it will also have coverage of the NASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series from Watkins Glen International Road Course Racing. And guess what? Mitchell DeYoung's not in this race. So we have a little bit more open show in terms of who might actually get a chance to win, and see how this goes. It'll be entertaining to see how we go road course racing with trucks on Podium and Podium 2, and then the Simvax Cup Series powered by MPI heads to Kansas Speedway for a full 267 laps next Sunday night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. Lights are off. First green-white checker attempt here coming. We've got 3, 2 more available if we need them. Any predictions here, Justin Prince, or are you just going to let this play out and call what you see?
I think for how this is going to play out is, if you get the opportunity to get to the inside of Hale, you take it. It's going to come down to one move, one timing of the run, I think, to get this job done. If you're Hale, you try and play as hard defensively as you can and hope that the air drivers take a while to try and get around Presley Sora to be able to build that buffer to be able to defend for the last lap.
waiting on Hale again. Once again, the control car had a pretty good restart last time and went earlier than maybe just about anybody in the box this time around, as Sora was almost caught napping. Brian LaPrad's already alongside him, and there's the 3 of Jordan Spood looking to the inside as well as they go into 1.
A nice start for LaPrade. Needs to clear by Sora quickly, though, to be able to have a shot here. A bit of shuffling out of turn 2, though.
Everybody sliding high out the racetrack, struggling for grip as William Hale's got a good run. More wrecking on the back straightaway. Yellow flag out once again as trouble in turn number 2. Tommy Gossett involved in this one along with David Cabrera. And we'll take a look at the replay to see who else was involved in this incident. On the back straightaway, Greg Maconi, I believe, also swept up.
I think there was 3 wide coming off of turn 2 that you see just up the road from all this, where there was a bit of contact just right there. You see the left side of your screen. Cars shed out down the middle of the straightaway, just nowhere for some competitors to go except try and dive as low as they can. And even then, the door closes, then swings the other direction on them.
Not really much I think you can do, and that's a tough break, especially there for the 38 machine of David Cabrera, who was just trying to escape and get out of this and just couldn't find enough space when he needed it. So he slides out of it and ends up in trouble and stuck down on the inside with a bent up race car. Tommy Gossett too. It's a tough break for him. The EOL ends up, I would say, derailing his night for the most part, because you think if he hadn't gotten into Hendry earlier, he's probably not back here and not involved in this incident at all. But instead, he goes around on the back straight. Big contact there with Cabrera that sends his car flying too, and that will likely end Gossett's bid for a victory in the Big Power 75.
You're absolutely right. If it wasn't for that, he's in a prime position right now. And Greg Maconi nowhere to go, as you've seen, as he ended up getting to the door. Gossett as well, getting swung to the bottom of the racetrack. All the doors closed very quickly when it came to the reaction time on that corner exit. But the prime thing is 2 things. LaPrade's already up to 2nd, so that's a great spot for him for this restart. Garrett Maines is already back up to 5th.
Maines is there, LaPrade is there, but in a situation like this, and this is what gets me, we've seen William Hale get good enough restarts that even if LaPrade times these perfectly, he's still probably going to be at minimum half a car length to a full car length back of Hale by the time they cross the stripe. Whether or not he can draw even or at least alongside him entering 1 is another story altogether, and that I think will tell us a lot about how his second attempt at a green white checker will go. But simple truth is that it's been really difficult for anybody on the outside to read the restart of the leader and stay with them all night long. And I think that's especially important at a place like Twin Ring Motegi, because the front straightaway is entirely flat. There is no banking there, which makes it as easy as ever to spin your tires out and loop yourself around if you try and get on the gas pedal too quickly.
And so far, Hale's done an incredible job to be able to manage that tire spin and prevent it from being a factor for him so far. For Presley Sora, it's been coming into play a couple times. That really cost him on that restart. But now, I think if you're LaPrade, you have to be able to find a hole to the bottom. Build up the draft through turns 1 and 2, and bit down the back straightaway and take the opportunity to make the move to the inside. That's going to be his prime position here. If it times up well, if LaPrade loses momentum and the bottom line gets a better restart, second row on back like they have the past couple restarts, then LaPrade's in trouble here with Spoon, Rice, and Maines ready to pounce and take advantage of that situation if that happens.
And you've got Spoon and Rice who are working together as part of the ERCR stable. You've got Maines and Sora who have all sorts of speed and talent. We've seen them run everywhere. Even Michael Peters on those old tires is at least hanging in there in the mix. He doesn't have the fresh rubber of some of the drivers around him, but if they start getting together and he can poke his way through all this, watch out. Maybe he finds a way to steal the victory from underneath everyone's noses on this, or maybe potential final 2-lap sprint. But again, we don't know, and there's also the potential that somebody could wreck on the exit of 2 like we've seen the last few cautions, and we may end up going to a 3rd green white checker as well. cloud cover, though, on the racetrack for the second of 2 attempts at a green-white checker. What will William Hale do this time around as the pace car comes on? Hale will go about the same spot he did, and LaPrade did a decent job of reading that start. But again, a full car length back of William Hale that allows Sora to go ahead and go past Brian LaPrade and Presley. Sora goes up to second before they even get to turn 1.
And LaPrade tried to back off a little bit to get to the inside, but Maines shot the hole and immediately made his way to the bottom of the racetrack. This is exactly what Hale and Sora wanted to see, this side by side, and them side drafting one another.
Remember, if we get the white flag, the next flag will end the race as one car drives it in deep down in 3 and 4. As you look off the nose of Brian LaPrade, William Hale will come towards the white flag, and we will get the yellow right before we get the white, and we will have a third attempt at a green-white checker because they were wrecking before Hale crossed the start-finish line. Trouble with Mitchell Robinson and Andrew Navarro further back in the racetrack. Navarro goes sideways, and he swept up a few people as well in this. Looks like you got a lot of folks going around. Most notably, I saw the 63 machine. I believe that was Mr. Ghostman himself, Travis Martin. It was indeed around with Navarro. Looks like the 88 machine of Josh Schultz also in there. And Tommy Gossett just threw that down on the inside.
Yeah, here's the view from Gossett, who was already bobbling loose coming off of turn 2, trying to utilize the outside line. Remember, involved in the last incident. Had to get his car repaired, and then you see the gaggle start to build up with all the smoke. He's already sending into the corner with the checkups. Already trying to push as hard as he can to get some of these spots. And then right here, the C's part, and he finds the gap that just opens up at the last moment for him to just avoid everything. That takes a lot of luck, but also precision to have the awareness to see where that hole is going to potentially pop up.
A shame to see Josh Schultz caught up in this. That's one scheme we didn't get the chance to talk about, which normally wouldn't necessarily be all that special. Dale Jarrett's classic 88, the blue and red quality care machine. But in this race back in 1998, DJ didn't make the trip, and it was Darrell Waltrip that ended up running this car. And I would argue, as we look at that 98 Motegi race, we brought it up a few times, within the context of this part of it, I think the beginning of Darrell Waltrip's TV career, maybe you could trace it back to all his great interviews in the 80s, but that's the first race that I can remember watching where they really tried to bring in DW on radio and have him talk during the race. And I think that you go back and you look at this race, Twin Ring Motegi, where he ran, you see the seeds of what the folks at Fox saw that convinced them to bring DW on for that run he had for nearly 20 years in the Fox booth with Mike Joy and company.
And Darrell Waltrip, of course, did a ton of work when it comes to broadcasting too, and how with some of the most iconic moments in all of motorsports when he was in the booth. It was incredible to see him up there for so long, for so many years, but as well how talented he was on the racetrack.
Yeah, pretty good. NASCAR Hall of Fame career. Nobody's ever going to complain about it. Also somebody that we've been fortunate enough to have here on Podium Esports, and I definitely enjoy it when we get DW on these shows. But for now, we have a big power 75 from Richard Childress Racing and Maconi Setup Shop to settle. One more attempt at a green-white checker, so we are going to go for this. We are not going to see any more yellows, I would think. And this is going to be all about, A, can anybody read the start of William Hale? And B, can anybody hang with the 62? And then C, can Hale deliver and pick up one of the biggest wins of his sim racing career?
It's all going to be intriguing, and I think Maines is in a great spot here if he gets the start that we've seen the past few on the bottom line, because he might be able to get the chance to make the move quickly on Sora, and if he does that, then it's game on for the final lap and a half. And Maines is someone who will take that chance the second that opening pops up. Remember how dominant he was at the start of the race before the pit stops and the cautions started to shuffle things about.
He's had to climb his way through this field with the cautions. You know Garrett Maines wants to get this done. He knows how good he's been on Podium Esports broadcast. He doesn't want to see his streak break. And Hale goes off, and we are green flag racing for the final restart of the night. And there goes Maines to the inside of Presley Sora. He's already there for second and will go to P2 as they enter one for the next to last time.
There's step one. Clear by Sora to get to the bottom towards the exit of turn 2. Now the main thing is closing up the gap in the corners to William Hale. He needs to find a way to build up this run to be able to make the dive fully.
Can he get to William Hale? That's the big question. Contact a little further back in the field with a white flag here in the Big Power 75, and Garrett Maines is going to try and stalk Hale and pass him here on the last lap for the win of the virtual Twin Ring Motegi.
And this is going to be a huge chance for Maines. He's got himself close enough. Had to check up a little bit on the exit of turn 2. Good exit, though, and a little bit of a bobble for Hale. The tires are starting to go off.
Hale got loose there on the exit of 2. The opportunity is going to be there for Maines in 3 and 4. What does the 2 car do? What does Presley Sora do? What does William Hale do? Hale will go up the racetrack. Maines has a little window on the inside. He's going to drive it up and get into the 62 machine, and William Hale is going to hang on and drive just far enough out ahead of Garrett Maines to pick up the victory in the Big Power 75 from Richard Childress Racing and Maconi set up shop. And Garrett Maines tried to give Hale a bump, and Hale almost got himself loose on a few occasions, but Hale did just enough to maintain the race lead and ultimately pick up the victory and bring it back home to Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
A huge victory in William Hale's sim career. One of the biggest in that regard for him. And it takes a lot of skill to hold on when you get bumped like Maines. He tried to use the bump and run. Just couldn't get it strong enough to destabilize Hale there in the final corner.
That was a racing bump and run, too. I think that's my favorite part of it. Sometimes you see people just completely send folks to the moon, and other times you see folks give the tactical bump. And I would argue Maines was more in that second camp than the first. A good race there at the end, but it's William Hale that goes to victory lane in this Big Power 75 from Richard Childress Racing and Maconi Setup Shop. Donuts on the front straightaway in Japan as Hale's Ford Mustang goes to the top of the boards, and we'll get the chance to chat with William here in just a few moments.
A really incredible race, and it all came down in part to strategy, James. For him to take 2 tires was a bold call, and he knew how this race could play out, and in turn it went exactly how he hoped it would go. Great race for William Hale.
It was a big strategy call indeed, because he needed a lot of yellows at the end. If we got green flag laps, this was not going to work. He was going to get past at some point, but he got all the yellows he needed to stop this race and then start it up again and stop it and start it and keep the tire wear down so that he could keep his position in this race and ultimately end up in victory lane by a 1/10 of a second over Garrett Maines. Presley Sora comes home 3rd this evening in the Big Power 75. Brian LaPrade was 4th. Jordan Spoon and Derek Rice, the ERCR teammates who helped put this together, 5th and 6th, ahead of Lee Overton, part of the team at Maconi Setup Shop. So lots of partner representation in the top 10. Greg Hectus out there in 8th with Michael Peters and Nick Kessler completing the top 10.
Mitchell Robinson in 11th position, Josh Stoltz in 12th, Justin Upham in 13th position, Drew Halloran in 14th, Tommy Gossip recovers to 15th, Taylor Burris a very solid 16th place run. Brandon Bullock in 17th. Andrew Navarro was in contention at one point, finishes in 18th. Greg Maconi, Craig Lewis round out the top 20.
21st in tonight's race was Brett Pancari. Travis Martin was the last car on the lead lap. Jason Coe, the first car 1 lap down. They were 22nd and 23rd, respectively. Decon, Dylan Connolly, 24th on the night. 25th went to Charlie Brown. John Coe was 26th. 27th is where you'll find Tyler Bowers. John Timms brought it home in 28th. 29th went to David Cabrera, and Rob Peterson completed the top 30.
31st position went to Dontre Graves. Started 23rd position for him. Jeffrey Maconi, 32nd. Clayton Davis, 33rd. Entered 19 laps down, 34th rather. S.E. Martin, 35th. with Cameron Iverson 36th position, 25 laps down. Trevor Vogel 40 laps down, 37th. Jason Overton 38th. Win Ritchie 39th, and one driver did not take the green.
40 cars that competed in this big Power 75. One man who stands atop all of them, and it was William Hale out of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, picking up the victory. And William, first things first, I think the pivotal call here, we just talked about it on our own. I want your take on the call to go for 2 tires instead of 4 late in the race. What your thinking was behind that and how you came to that decision to begin with.
I just track position mostly. It was really hard to get by guys, really hard to keep the momentum up into 3 and 4. Just track position was most of what I was going for there, and it paid off. I feel like if Garrett and those guys and Tommy and everybody would have stayed up front, it wouldn't have paid off as good as I wanted it to. But luck was on our side tonight a lot, and it worked out in the end.
That final restart, too, you knew you were on the old rubber. You had a Garrett Maines charging. Those last few laps, just take us through bit by bit, especially the bobble off of 2 you had and then the shot he gave you out of 4. How'd you survive to stay up front and win this thing?
I mean, Garrett's a great driver for one. Presley as Breyer's good. I mean, I was in good company. I knew I wasn't going to get roughed up too bad, and it isn't bad for us guys. Those guys knows exactly where they're putting their race cars at, and I don't know. Garrett was coming back up to the field pretty quick, and Presley had my number. Wow, I don't really know how we did it, to be quite honest. I just don't look in the mirror and drive. I didn't even know he was really coming to hit me. I figured he was going to try to dive it in, try something, but I didn't look in the mirror, and there he was. So, yeah, it was good racing Garrett. It was good racing those guys. Man, this is an awesome event. I'm pumped. I'm having a blast.
So then it was instinctual. So I guess maybe the more appropriate question is whether or not it's your experience at Nashville Fairgrounds in real life, or whether or not it's your sim racing experience that gave you the experience to have that sort of be like a brainstem function where you don't even think about it, or was it a combination of the two, or maybe more of the sim than real life? Where's that come from?
Well, yeah, that comes from years of quarter-mile racing right there. I learned that way back when I first started racing. Somebody told me a long time ago, Craig Thompson's his name. He built Renegade race cars, first race car I ever drove. He actually taped my mirror up and said, only thing you need to know is what I tell you on the radio. So I've stuck with that ever since. When we're out front, I don't ever look in the mirror. So, yeah, I guess you could say it was a lot of instinctual, a lot of driving quarter miles, Nashville. It was a lot. I used a lot of different things to iRace, the same as I do in real life. It's really all the same, and Twin Ring is one of my favorite tracks on the service, so that kind of helped out. I didn't think I really had it figured out in practice, but it somewhat paid off. We weren't the best car, but we got it done. So,
amongst your sim racing career victories, where's this stack up? Has to be up there, no?
I don't know. Garrett Maines is a really good driver, and Presley is as well, and Breyer and all those guys. Those guys are some of the best. So, I mean, it's up there for sure in the realm of winning iRaces. It's pretty far up there. I haven't been iRacing as much. I haven't been doing any real events here lately, and this is my first one since last year. So this was really awesome to come be able to be a part of it with these guys. So, and yeah, it's pretty far up there. I think, Pike. It's pretty far.
And oh, by the way, you're getting a panel off Talarettic's Quartz Hill Chevy Camaro. You're getting a Big Power t-shirt for the Big Power 75, courtesy of the folks at Richard Childress Racing. Got to be excited about the prizes too, no?
I mean, I like prizes. Who doesn't like prizes? That's awesome. Just RCR coming on board and putting this event together for us. Maconi Setup Shop. You guys, of course, as always, you guys do a fantastic job week in, week out. But yeah, just the RCR getting involved in iRacing and giving us guys on the sim a platform to come race. It was awesome. It's really awesome of those guys stepping up and doing this for us. I cannot thank those guys enough. It was a fun event. It was an awesome event. Everything went really smooth, I feel like, and I hope to see RCR doing more of these in the future, because I will try to be at every one of them I can.
Fair enough. Well, you go celebrate, go have fun, and nice quarter panel logo there too. I don't know. We may have seen that name around a few times, but not a bad looking one at that. Nice work there. Congratulations on the victory, William, and we'll see you around.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you, guys.
William Hale, Tennessee native, comes home P1 tonight. P2, a man who many folks on Podium Esports broadcast will know well, and those who have watched Podium Esports broadcast in the past know very well. Out of Powhatan, Virginia, just outside of the state capital of Richmond, where you'll find Garrett Means, who is with our Justin Prince.
And it was a whirlwind for you tonight, Garrett. You had strong pace in the early going, a lot of battling for the race lead in the middle portions, had to claw your way back in the later portions, and have one shot in the final lap. Talk us through those closing stages in that battle up front.
Man, there's nothing more frustrating than being in a situation where, you're in complete control and then having it ripped away from you. I felt like, I was in a position that, couldn't be beaten. Like, I had it pretty much in my control, and when I got caught up in that wreck, ripped the right front off the car, I was, kind of at the mercy of the cautions and just how things played out. And I had excellent restarts, was able to pick up a couple spots every time, but the cautions were coming out at the perfect time to not pick up the amount of spots that I had actually gotten by the time it actually waved. So basically I was giving back one or two every single time it flew. If that hadn't happened, I feel like I would have had two shots at him. But basically just ran out of time there. You could see it down the backstretch. He was really getting that straightaway speed on me. Didn't surprise me. I knew coming off that corner, if I could not get to his inside before the exit, which with the way turn 2 works, it's very difficult to do, that my straightaway speed was going to be down too much, and I didn't think I'd be able to get to his quarter panel. So he did an excellent job. William did, going down into turn 3. He did not miss the bottom. I was trying to challenge him for it, but there was literally nothing I could do. That was everything I had, and he did an excellent job through and through, holding on to the lead there with the 2 tires. So congrats to him. Just disappointed. I wish I had another shot at him.
Very respectful in terms of how things fared out with the battle, and indeed clean attempt at the bump and run in that situation as well. But this track, of course, is one where NASCAR went to in 1998, and it's not one you normally see, of course, today. The Gen 6 cars race at. How was it trying to learn this track and be able to get yourself up to speed?
That's a great question, because I thought this started at 8:30, and it turns out that practice ended at 8:30. Kind of missed that. It was definitely on the flyer. I just can't read. So I ended up jumping in here at like 8:20, which was 5 minutes before the driver's meeting. So I only had a few minutes to even get acclimated to the car. This track it's interesting. I've only raced, I think it was the Oval Series with Podium. That was the last time I was here, which was like 2 years ago. Like you said, not a common track for NASCAR stuff, so it's really cool to come back here, and I felt like I still learned, or I still remembered some of the stuff I learned back then. So it was interesting. These cars are very aero sensitive, and this track is very single group through 1 and 2, but it ended up playing out pretty well, the draft, and everything felt really balanced. It was a lot of fun to race this. It's definitely one of the better tracks for these cars, so a lot of fun. Excellent job. Racing with everybody today was really cool, and everybody showed a lot of respect. It's just some really good battles out there. So
it looked incredible indeed, especially for the battles for the race lead during the first half or so, where you had so many comers and goers too. And this track is so unique in that regard, Garrett, too, where you have the runs being built up down the straights, but also have to battle those corners indeed.
Yeah, it's not a cookie cutter. You've got very, very different corners on both ends. It's a very momentum-based racetrack, at the end of the straightaways, but then you've got a really hard braking zone into turn 3 that if you miss the bottom, you screw up your front stretch, and, you go into turn 1, and it's really how far do you want to send it into turn 1. So it races really well. It allowed for a lot of passing and a lot of, opportunities to catch up to people, move around. You all come back to the same spot, but you still were able to maneuver your car enough to be able to set up those runs, and it was really neat. It's not a lot of tracks on the schedule that allow that, and this is definitely a special one.
Definitely a special one and a special event. Thank you very much for the time, Garrett. A very strong performance for you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I also got to give a shout out to OfferPad, Smithfield, Lennox, Nutrien Ag Solutions, Digital Hub, everybody at Elliott Sadler Esports for all the hard work in the Coke Series this year. Hopefully we can continue to bring fast cars to the racetrack and actually finish where we deserve in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much for your time, Garrett.
Thanks, sir.
Garrett Maines, P2.
That means P2, whether or not you know him as Presley, whether or not you know him as Vincent, it's Mr. Sora himself here running a very slick silver and red and black machine 2P3. And Presley, you had a good shot of all these restarts at the end. So from your perspective, to be right there at the front end, but also sort of in the thick of it, what was it like from behind the wheel?
Oh, it was great. The outside lane isn't really the preferred lane for the restarts there, so I knew it was going to be tough to try to get alongside William and battle him for the lead. But that one restart that I got the bottom and got to push him, I thought I had a good chance there, and then another yellow came out. But man, that was wild. I knew I had the speed to finish top 3, but then I got set back because of a lucky dog on a pit cycle. I had to drive all the way back through the field from like 27th all the way back up. And I avoided some massive wreck. There was like 10 cars all stacking up off of 4, and I just put it to the floor and drove right through the middle of all of them.
How tough were the restarts on the outside? I wonder if you were able to figure out why, or have any theory as to why it was so tough for the outside car to get going, because we saw you have some trouble with it. We saw Breyer have trouble with it. We saw a whole host of people just struggle starting and restarting from second. Do you have any sense as to why that is here?
Yeah, it wasn't really lack of grip. It was just the leader on the inside, he gets choice of when to go. So whoever's on the outside in P2 basically just has to guess or follow whenever they go. So you're automatically kind of at a disadvantage there. So once they're already going, then you're lagging back a little bit, and it's just tough to get back going. Plus the third placer, it's easier for them to get up and push the leader than it is for fourth to anticipate it and get up and push second.
So a timing thing more than a grip thing, which is certainly fair. What about Twin Ring Motegi? An inspired choice, a different choice? Not usually a track you see these cars run on, but Cup cars at Motegi, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, it was fun. Honestly, I had no clue what to expect. My first laps were today. I just got the track yesterday, and I practiced a bunch this afternoon, and it's a fun track. And the drafting is crazy with these Cup cars. You can get a massive run off the car in front of you, and it's still nice and loose and kind of tough to drive, especially on the long run. It gets tight and dirty air, but once you're in clean air, it gets loose. So it's a fun mix of challenging and quick.
And quick you were to get to P3, Presley. Thanks so much for the time. Congratulations on your podium finish, and look forward to seeing you on another event soon on down the line.
Yep, and real quick, can I shout out my sponsors, Club Jerky and Maconi Setup Shop? Gotta thank those guys, and obviously it's good to do well in the Maconi Setup Shop RCR race when one of my sponsors is Maconi Setup Shop. And then I want to thank Runnings Racing Design for making the paint scheme, and obviously shout out to Moon Sport, my team. So
hey, your boss man was pretty active at Hickory, shall we say. Saw Travis in a lot of spots over the weekend, so
yeah,
somebody there.
Yeah, he has been.
Presley Sora comes from P3 this evening at Twin Ring Motegi, fourth tonight. Name who's had plenty of airtime here and is going to get a little bit more. Brian LaPrade brought it home in that fourth spot from Manchester, Tennessee. He's with Justin Prince.
And Breyer, some interesting moments for you. You were mixing up for the race lead much of the race. How did you feel your race went tonight?
I feel went pretty decent there. First of all, I just want to thank you guys for the broadcast, Jeff Maconi and everyone at RCR for getting this event together. Had a blast. Definitely a new experience for me. I've never turned laps here. The only experience I got with this place is spotting former RCR driver Anthony Alfredo in Monday Night Racing League here in the Indy cars. So just kind of basing it off that. Probably not the best idea to take some IndyCar notes and apply to these Cup cars, but tried my best. Yeah, just couldn't really get up front. I think the dirty air was killer. Couldn't really get a run on people off the corners. I was trying to go lower than everyone off the corners, just trying to save some tire and hope it'd work out, but I don't know, I just couldn't figure it out tonight. But yeah, I also want to thank Ledford Bird Supply. Check them out at ledfordbirdsupply.com. JDR Graphics, Lockdown Racing, Anthony Alfredo Dude Wipes, Sim Seats, MPI, Maconi Setup Shop, Garage Guys Fantasy Sports, and the new sponsor, we got to get the scheme updated by JD, but Flat Out Racing Network for supporting me. But yeah, that race was a ton of fun.
It looked like a ton of fun. And what was that like, trying to battle with the momentum? You mentioned a bit of the dirty air as well being a bit of a factor, but all that shuffling where it led to, in turn, a lot of passing opportunities, Briar, that came into play, especially for the race lead. You shuffled into it a couple times, believe.
Yeah, the beginning of the run, it took like 10 or 15 laps, but like after the first little bit there, like it was tough to pass. But yeah, at first you could get some runs. There was a time I was sitting behind Maines, I believe, early on, and was following him, and it felt like I was just pushing him with an air bubble, just like they do in real life with this package, and just couldn't really do much with it. He would just slowly get away, and I think that's what Maines experienced there at the end, going into 3 on the final lap. Just William pulled away good enough and got away from him, so he wouldn't get moved there at the end, and that's what paid off.
In that situation, and of course, all very much fun. How fun was this overall for you? I know you were streaming your perspective as well.
Oh yeah, it's a blast. Doing these events is so much fun. Gives me stream content. I know people enjoy watching me do these kinds of events. So shout out to everyone that watches on my channel at Patriot Briar on Twitch. Love them to death. They biggest supporters that I got. So hopefully they were entertained by this whole event.
Definitely looked entertaining. Glad you were entertained. Thank you very much for the time, Briar.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Briar LaPrade finishing in 4th position.
He was 4th, and we got a whole host of folks that are about to come in here. It's not just one. It's not just one style or one time there, rather. I think we got 5 or 6 in the booth here, so we'll set a new record on Podium Esports. But we're now joined by Derek Rice, Jordan Spoon, Justin Watham, Dante Gray, Jeff Maconi, pretty much all the heads of state here who helped make this possible. But first, I want to go to Jordan and Derek, because you two were top 5 pretty much all night, and you all were also working together with everybody in the same Discord room. Did the ability to communicate directly with one another, did that help, especially in the late goings of this race?
I'll start. Yeah, Derek and I quite a few times were talking back and forth about trying to get clear or give each other a little bit of room. And we were able to talk a little bit of strategy when it came into pitting too. So that made a huge help. I think long run it paid off to us. And we also put in a lot of practice this week. I don't think Derek will disagree with that.
No, it's probably, I think we did like 700 laps of practice over the course, probably since Monday. And another thing too, being in the same server as each other, it really helped on those late race restarts, because neither on any of them we weren't really like nose to tail. One was high and one was low, and you just could not see when William was going to go on that inside line. So we were really trying to just let each other know when he was going on whoever was on the outside, and that really helped. And you know, if I had damage, I got hit early in the race, so I didn't feel like I was as good in the corners as what I needed to be. So if I didn't get a good restart, you know, it was more or less just letting him in. We really worked hard. We wanted to put on a good show. We wanted to really be there and represent ERCR as best as we could. So I felt like we tried to do that tonight. I'm saying mission accomplished when you look at who we were able to race around. And I mean, even though we were 5th and 6th, the amount of talent in that top 10 was just phenomenal tonight.
Tons of people who had plenty of skill and a big time finish from both of you. Let's turn though to the man who helped get this all together from the ERCR side, Justin Watham himself. I guess this is the part where I get to break the fourth wall and say, hi, big fan. But more importantly, for those who don't know what you do at RCR on a day-to-day basis, just tell the folks a little bit about your day-to-day job and what you put together for the folks there.
Yeah, at RCR, I am kind of in charge of all the content production. So from photo, video, graphics, esports now. I'm kind of work with the team of Kyle Stizowitz. We kind of are the 1-2 punch at RCR. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those things that you kind of wake up every morning and you pinch yourself. Getting to be involved with such a legendary team like RCR, never any short of excitement over there, and that's a good thing. So it's a lot of fun. We enjoy it, and getting to do stuff like this now is just kind of the icing on the cake.
So when you see cool things on social and you see ERCR stuff floating about, now everybody at Podium Esports knows at least one of the men behind it. But about this Big Power 75 and the decision to take these cars to Twin Ring Motegi, it's an inspired choice because it's not a standard combo by any stretch of the imagination. Very few people run this one. Now, all of us at Podium being nerds, we love seeing stock cars at Motegi. We run them here ourselves. But where did the idea come from your end to take the Cup cars and run them here, of all places?
So with the kind of off week situation we had with the 2 weeks because of the Olympics, we decided, hey, let's put it on an event for the fans. Let's try and get some people in here. And like, well, hey, the Olympics are in Japan. Let's race in Japan, So this might be kind of our resume for, hey, we should have sim racing or real racing in the Olympics in a couple of years. But it was just one of those cool things. It's a track that I've ran a couple times in some other just varied iRacing events, and I've done an Xfinity car here, and I was like, man, this was actually a lot of fun. It's a really cool track. We always kept joking when we were starting this, when we were just running test sessions, me, Jordan, and Derek, that we were like, what setup? Because before we got Maconi to build the setup for us, we were just trying to figure out what would even get us around there. So we were tinkering around. We were putting Las Vegas. We were putting Darlington. It's everything. But this track's so cool. There's a lot of racing lines, as we've seen. It's really cool too because it's one of those tracks where we practiced all week on trying to set fast time, but then it came to the point where it was like, okay, this track really tears up tires, so let's see what we can do for tire management and all that stuff. And it showed, especially tonight. You got that long run at the beginning where, you had guys trying to take care of their stuff at the start that maybe lost a little bit, but on the backside they were really starting to catch them before that caution came out. So it's a cool track. It's something, I'm a fan of, kind of like you said, with taking Cup cars or cars that don't belong on certain tracks and putting them there and see what happens. And I think this was kind of mission accomplished on that one.
Yeah, there also is the small point. We talked a little bit about the history of this race too, that when the Cup Series came here in 1998, it was an RCR number 31 that did go to victory lane. So I can tell you went for the good juju on that one. But you also got a good partner here in Jeff Maconi. And Jeff, I want to turn to you. So JWAP and company come to you with this idea. How do you take it and put your part in to make this Big Power 75 happen?
Well, my first job is to pick my jaw up off the floor when I hear, it's RCR, we're going to get this event together, and we want you to help be behind the wheel of it and make it all happen. And I sort of went, oh my goodness, this is insane. It wouldn't have been possible without Derek. He's the one that got me and Justin together, and it just all came together so quickly. I think we sort of were zeroing in on the track and car, and we were originally planning, okay, we're going to look at the next gens, and then we said, well, what about the current Cup cars? And then we were looking at Okayama, we were looking at Tsukuba, and Twin Ring as well. And I was sort of pushing for a road course in the next gens, and Justin came back and goes, I really think the Cup cars at Twin Ring. And I said, okay, I can make it happen, don't worry. And it's been non-stop ever since, I think it was Monday night that I finally got to go ahead. I think it was Monday at 7:30, and getting everyone on board, getting Podium on board, getting UNOH on board, getting everyone in together to somehow make this crazy, wild, unbelievable dream happen. But it did. It all came together really quickly. I think it came together really well, and I really could not be happier with it, with how everything came out.
Although I gotta knock you a few historical accuracy points, because you do remember the big man whose car you took and made your own tonight. He did run the red car in '98, not the black one. He let the black one for Junior.
That is true. However, I got with 1023 graphics, and I said I have always wanted a black Intimidator style scheme. I never jumped on it because it didn't feel right. I'm not Dale Earnhardt. I'm not able to jump in and run that paint scheme. And then once the event came together with RCR, I sort of said, I have always wanted to run a scheme like this. I've always wanted a black Intimidator scheme, but with Maconi Setup Shop branding, adding on all of the other amazing sponsors, Martin Sports, Podium, UNOH is just icing on the cake. But I also can't thank them enough for everything. UNOH for sponsoring this broadcast and making that jump in. The whole theme of this event has been getting real world tracks and companies and teams and everyone else involved in the virtual world. That's what I've done since the beginning. So when Maconi Setup Shop started, we got Stafford Motor Speedway into the virtual world, and ever since then we got the All-American 400, we did the Snowball Derby. All these big major events have always been done through us because we're able to bridge that gap between real world and virtual world and make it happen. So we were able to kill two birds with one stone here, bring RCR to the virtual world on iRacing, bring UNOH to the virtual world. It was sort of a no-brainer with UNOH as well, where they're the top real-world motorsports program in college. They were the first. They have Lima Land. They actually own Lima Land, the track. And so just the next logical step is to jump in and get on the virtual world. And it's been so exciting working with them and representing them on the car. I mean, I remember being 5, 6, 7 years old and going to the track up at New Hampshire Motor Speedway and seeing UNOH everywhere and always thinking, well, maybe I'll go there. And I ended up being a Boilermaker, following the steps of my older brother. But to have UNOH on the car is and be the first person to really bring him to the virtual world is very cool and very humbling and honoring. So thank you, huge thank you to them, to Martin Sports, to you guys here at Podium, and to the whole RCR crew for everything that everyone has done to make this happen.
And speaking of real-world organizations, when it comes to racing, maybe none bigger than the mothership itself, and we happen to have somebody who's a small part of that team. Dontre Graves is with us as well. And Dontre, I'll ask the same question to you that I asked Justin. For those who don't know what you do with NASCAR, tell the folks on Podium a little bit about what you do in the 9-to-5 world, and I guess outside of it too when we go racing on weekend.
I'm a social content coordinator for the big NASCAR handle that comes with all the content that you see on a day-to-day basis and on the weekend. So you might see me at the track, you might see me at the office doing play-by-play for races. So yeah, we meme it up a little bit, and so I'm a part of that great team. And I guess these 2 weeks off gave me a chance to e-race a little bit.
How fun has it been to step into the virtual stuff? This is honestly one of the first times I've seen you get behind the wheel. I know you'd had an account for a while, but to dust off the skills and get at iRacing for a bit under the brake, what's it been like for you?
It's been an up and down experience, especially just like this race tonight. I got into about 2,200 iRating last week, and I'm back down to about 1,800. So that's the nature of the beast for iRacing for anybody from what I'm hearing. But it's just it's a great tool because it helps me have a better understanding of what the drivers are going through when I'm covering the races, or like when I'm at the track and I see certain things, and I can kind of relate to, oh, he got loose, or like this is happening with the car, or like this groove is working or that groove's working. So iRacing is just amazing, and participating in stuff like this tonight is just another reason why e-racing is a great tool.
Now, I'm going to give you a chance to set the record straight here, because we mentioned on the broadcast that we're both part of the Race Car People Sports League that plays softball on Wednesday nights in the Charlotte area. And I made the mistake of saying that you can mash a ball 300 yards instead of 300 feet. Now, I've seen some of the shots that you sent to center field, left field. It feels like they could go about 300 yards if they need to. But for everybody at home, just how far can you whack a baseball, a softball, and how good you are at mashing taters left and right?
I'm pretty washed up now, but in my heyday, I could send some pretty deep. I know in our softball league, I've come close the last couple of weeks of sending them over the fence. I just gotta eat my Wheaties before we play next time.
Eat the Wheaties and get prepared for a fun time. Checks out to me. But if you want to see this man hit a baseball here in the Charlotte area, softball, the Race Car People Sports League on Twitter is a good place to start. Definitely check that out too. And then to all of you, let's open it up at the very end. And just with the way this came together so quickly and as big as it got, a 40-car field for this, anybody here, how excited are you? How happy are you? How much fun has this been to put on this event tonight?
Man, this is something that, you know, when the idea came in my head that this is an idea that we wanted to go forward with, it's so cool. You know, this is something that I see that iRacing, it's huge. It's a massive part of our sport now. It's something that last year it got us through a lot of things, you know, sometimes when we didn't have a lot going on because of just the things going on in the world. And so it's this great tool. It's this great entertainment factor. And, you know, to team up with great people like Jeff and to have, you know, Jordan and Derek and Dontre come and help out and make this thing just go the way it did, it's something that gets me hyped up. It gets me excited for the future. It makes me want to be able to do this more, and hopefully this will lead to more, because this is just something that's so much fun. And it's kind of one of those surreal moments when I'm kind of texting Jeff every morning. I'm like, hey, what's the signups? Where are we at? And he's like, we're over 50 people now. We're going to have to send people home. So it's so cool, because like it's become, you watch it and you just hope for 25 people and you're like, okay, this will be a win. And then it's like 30, 35, 40, and it just keeps going up. So for me, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I'm so thankful to have these great group of guys that were able to turn this around in such a short amount of time, and especially for you guys at Podium for putting this on. I mean, I've watched plenty of race broadcasts from you guys, and they're all top notch. And so to see an RCR event on Podium is one of those just really, really cool things. So I can't thank once again everybody for just all their help on this.
I don't even know how to follow that up, but yeah, it's been incredible. I'm very excited for it. It's sort of mind-blowing and humbling to me, and I think I can speak on behalf of the entire Maconi Setup Shop team to bring RCR, one of the most legendary teams. You know, you grow up watching them and everything else. It's really amazing and honoring and mind-blowing to bring them into the virtual world and help sort of bridge this gap here. So I know from behalf of the entire Maconi Setup Shop team, we are beyond thankful to have been involved and been selected for this. And I know there's a lot more coming. Justin, I don't know how much we can say and announce here, but I think there's a lot more coming in the near future. And so people should definitely stay excited for it. But yeah, really incredible. Huge thank you to everyone that was involved, the entire team at RCR, at Podium, at UNOH, everyone for making this possible, making this happen. And it was absolutely one of the most fun races I've ever been a part of.
I'll throw in there and let Derek go after me. A huge shout out to Justin for putting it together and coming to me and asking if I could do the schemes for the cars and letting us run official numbers and everything, and really making it a true ERCR event. And it was huge. It was fun. It's some of the best racing I've ever been a part of on iRacing. I can't wait to go back and watch the broadcast and just see it, because like Justin said, Podium is, I think, probably the best out there. So it was just a good time all around. And huge shout out to Jeff for putting some of the behind the pieces puzzles together for us once we needed that help. And a good teammate, and Derek and Justin and even Dontre coming in kind of late to the picture and still jumping in with us and pushing everybody. So thank you to everybody involved.
Yeah, definitely thank y'all. Definitely want to thank Podium. You know, as a frequent watcher of races that get broadcast, y'all were just hands down the best. It was great when Jeff sent me the message that y'all were on board and that all that was able to work out. Also want to thank UNOH for coming on and definitely being a part of the broadcast as well. Just to be able to be a part of both Maconi Setup Shop and ERCR, whether it's once or whether it's for the remainder of the time I'm sim racing, it's definitely humbling and awesome. And it was really cool tonight seeing throwback schemes, seeing people, you know, coming out here and wanting to be a part of this event. I thought it went phenomenal. Definitely thank everybody who came out, and I just can't wait. Hopefully we have another event coming up soon or bigger things. I'm not sure. Sounds like it's between Justin and Jeff on that, but I just hope to be a part of it in some way. And just again, thank everybody, and for the people still in here listening to this, thank y'all so much. And if there's another event, we hope to see y'all out there as well.
I think I can speak on the Podium side. A big opportunity for sure to be able to work with groups like Maconi Setup Shop, like RCR. Tons of fun to do this. Tons of great ties across the board. There's a lot of interconnectedness with this group, which made this event a lot of fun to be a part of. So a big thanks for y'all to come to us and putting this on. And we may have a fun little live reaction moment here, because if we're looking in the ballpark of future events, and not that it's my call officially, but I'll just chuck the idea out there, because I don't know if y'all caught it while you guys were practicing and getting ready for this race, but some fella named Dale Jr. tweeted some screenshots of Hickory Motor Speedway on his Twitter while we were live and just said the word September with them. RC's got some experience at Hickory, so I don't know. maybe that's the next spot. Perhaps, maybe, just maybe.
Oh man,
Justin,
that's
you
awesome.
in? Are you in?
Oh my gosh, man, that's awesome. So, Old Hickory, that's a racetrack that I've been wanting on this service for a long time. In real life, it puts on an awesome show every single time there's a race there. Just like the throwback race that was thrown this weekend. Like, that track has so much history, and I've been there many a time in the old days of, getting my feet wet in the sport and just knowing that the history of that place. So if that definitely is going to be put on the radar for sure. That track is so freaking cool. So that gets me even more hype now.
I can already see it. We run the late models, not the super lates, the regular late models there. We've got River Hayes, Bill Gross will build the setup for that and get that event rolling. We can get it back here on podium. Also, it would be cool to take, I don't know, the Gander trucks to Lima Land or something, because that's a UNOH track. If we can get them back on board, I think that would be another awesome event. So awesome. This is what it's like. This is not pre-scripted. This is like unfiltered how we plan things. So we'll see how quickly this comes together. Maybe this could be our next event. Who knows?
Heck yeah.
Oh yeah, no, we're going to Hickory at some point, I know, but I'd say first off, thanks to all y'all for coming on. Second, hang tight for a moment, and third, Justin Prince, we probably should get everybody else out there and get them to where they need to go. So let's go ahead and wrap this up and make the point that this has just been really entertaining. You saw so many different groups, I think, going 3-4 wide, middle of the pack. You saw great battles at the front of the field. This is one of those rare tracks where I think tonight exemplified that you can really find good battles anywhere in this field and find something entertaining to watch. It doesn't necessarily have to be up front where you have to say.
Indeed, it was a track that challenged all the drivers in their ability to make sure they could manage the air, of course, but also the runs that came into play down these straightaways to be able to find that fine margin when diving into the corners. It was a track that became a driver's circuit, and it looked like a blast and was a blast, to say the very least, as the driver said, because there were so many great opportunities for battles. There were so many great opportunities for drivers to try different lines and try different things. And in turn, it all worked out for what was a fun event. And in turn, drivers trying different strategies to and tire plays ended up being what benefited William Hale the most, in part, to be able to get in that track position and try and defend the rest of the way.
He nailed strategy. I think that's all you can say. Sometimes you have to take the gamble to make it work, and it was a gamble from William Hale. He did not have winning race speed when he stayed out and managed to get the 2 tires ahead of everybody else, but that call not only gets him the win, it gets him a quarter panel from Tyler Reddick, it gets him a Big Power t-shirt, it gets him the title of Big Power 75 champion. And that, I think, is going to be good enough for him, at least for tonight. Big week coming up, plenty of events in the world of podium esports, but tomorrow night's the big one. You want to focus in on the Monday Night Racing playoffs, final race of the round of 10, featuring the trucks of the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, the Talladega Super Speedway. Adam Alexander, Dave Moody on the call. We're broadcasting from the Steve Bruin Studios at Fox Sports Charlotte campus. You can see free race at 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night. Race broadcast at 8. You'll see that on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, the Podium Facebook and YouTube pages, as well as the MNR Twitter page, and so much more coming up over the course of the next week. But we'll just focus on Monday. Leave y'all with that. And say goodbye from the virtual Twin Ring Motegi for everybody in here that helped make this possible. Justin Wapham, Jordan Spoon, Derek Rice, John Trey Graves, Jeff Maconi, the whole team behind ERCR and Maconi Setup Shop. For everybody at Richard Childress Racing proper, UNOH. For our producer this evening, Ryan Bauer. For my colleague in the booth, Justin Prince. For our camera builder, Dougie Beard, I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you all so much for watching the Big Power 75 for Richard Childress Racing and Maconi Setup Shop. And we will see you tomorrow night for the final race in the round of 10 of Monday Night Racing with Adam Alexander and Dave Moody from the Fox Sports Studios in Charlotte.